Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om peace, peace, peace. And good evening. So I thought since we had the Holi celebration a few days ago, I'd first say a few words about that festival, because sometimes we forget what the symbolic meaning of the celebration is. People just think, oh, it's a time when people get silly and throw colors at each other. But it's at the core of that festival is a relationship between you and the divine. And the relationship between you and divine can be a playful and loving relationship. So you could think of it as the longing of the human heart to be touched for and transformed by divine joy. Holi originated with the story of Radha and Krishna, where color was involved. Krishna was feeling shy about his darker complexion, and so he playfully colored Radha's face so that they could look alike. So at that moment, Holi became a metaphor. It became a metaphor for the divine touching the soul becoming colored with divine qualities of joy, compassion, and love. So Chaitanya emphasized the simplicity of the spiritual path and how divine love is not something you earned, it's something that you have to receive with an open heart. So your job is to simply be open to that divine love. And he was also very inclusive, rather than having an idea of only people in a certain caste and could learn the Vedas and that type of thing. He wanted a spiritual path that everyone could follow. So he was very inclusive and embraced people of all backgrounds, declaring that the love of God was everybody's birthright, not just one or two or three different castes. And of course, his practice also involved not just chanting the Lord's name. That's what we often think of it, especially with Chaitanya, is chanting, but also kirtan and dancing and so forth. So full of joy. It's interesting to remember that he started his life as a profound scholar. He was one of these people that could win debates against anybody. He knew the scriptures backwards and forwards. He was quite the scholar of the scriptures. And then he had his transformation where he felt that this path of divine love was the better way to go. So we have to be careful, though, of course. Vivekananda was careful to remind us not to just become emotional. It isn't just a temporary emotional high that we're looking for, but it's a genuine type of holy experience with the divine. It's a process where you want to soften the ego and let your heart expand, and a way of allowing the world to be a place where you can serve rather than a place where you can conquer. The world's not something to conquer, but it's a place to serve. So Holi reminds us that love dissolves boundaries between people and communities, and most importantly, between our soul and God. So some of the other lessons of Holi would be to let go of old hurts, and just as it's sort of the end of winter and the beginning of spring, to let go of the dry, cold winter and welcome the warmth of spring, and to see all colors blending into beauty. That's a symbol for diversity. And so, and to approach spiritual life in a playful and joyous atmosphere. It's not, as Swami Vivekananda would also point out, it's not, religion isn't supposed to mean long, dreary faces and solemnness and so forth. That was sort of a reaction against some of the more puritanical Protestant movements, but it was supposed to be joyous. I think he probably would have liked the Shakers, too, if he had run into any. I'm not sure he did, but he probably would have enjoyed their type of services. All right, so that's just a little bit about the Festival of Holi. All right, then we left off in the middle of Swami Atmavidyananda's lecture about the efficacy of prayer. And he'd gone through some of the arguments of some of the more modern agnostic and scientifically minded people that felt that prayer just meant that you believed in some sort of personal God, and that you needed a personal God to explain anything you couldn't explain in the world, but now science was going to explain everything, and so there was no need for a personal God and that sort of thing. And so he went through those arguments. Now he's going to go on to some of the arguments in favor of spiritual prayer. Okay, mental changes must manifest themselves on the physical plane, and if the mental changes have no corresponding physical medium, they will not express themselves so readily until they create a proper medium. For instance, if I have a desire to write a letter, that desire is in my mind, and the thoughts are in my mind also, but the physical conditions must be there, otherwise I cannot write. So, in order to get the material expression of that desire and the thoughts, I must have pen, ink, paper, and other requisites. Even a spirit that wishes to communicate with the beings of this earth cannot do it without the help of a pen and other materials. If you were here a few weeks ago when we talked about some of his lectures on spiritualism, he'd actually attended one of these spiritualist ceremonies where they'd have automatic writing and so forth, and a spirit would communicate through writing, or sometimes even vocally. All right, so even a spirit that wishes to communicate with beings of this earth cannot do it without the help of a pen or other materials. So also, if I have a strong will to write, I shall do my best to get these materials, and then put my thoughts into words and write the letter. Where all the conditions are favorable, the thought is expressed. But if my hand becomes paralyzed at that time, in spite of all the conditions being favorable, it will be impossible for me to write. That paralysis may be temporary or permanent. If it be temporary, it may be cured either by mental power in the form of a strong desire, or by removing the clot of blood and the other obstacles that prevent the activity of motor nerves. Prayer is nothing but a mental desire which generates new currents in the system, and these currents produce certain results showing that mental power is stronger in many cases than that which can be obtained through drugs. But if the organs be completely destroyed in some way or other, then no amount of prayer can remove that condition. No Christian scientist, nor any faith healer, will be able to cure that case of paralysis. It is for this reason that Vedanta says that those desires which are in harmony with the laws of nature are surely fulfilled sooner or later. If I have a desire to fly in the air, that desire will not be fulfilled until I have wings. One may fly in a dream or in an airplane, but it will not be fulfilled in that particular be fulfillment of, it will not be a fulfillment of that particular desire. If we know that all desires are governed by the natural law of cause and sequence, and if we make our desire harmonize with natural laws, we are sure to get the results. And what we ordinarily call prayer is nothing but the expression of our intense desires and willpower being the causes, end in producing similar results. Being actions, they produce similar reactions. So, in other words, he's saying, don't wish to manifest a purple one-eyed unicorn or something. You have to try to manifest something that's actually possible. Desire brings their results more quickly when they are attended with a strong faith in their fulfillment, and that faith is strengthened by the belief that God hears what we say. It is for this reason that all the dualistic religions insist upon praying with a firm belief. But the Vedanta philosophy does not call these expressions of our desires as true prayers. These desires we may mistake for prayer, and these verbal expressions of our desires, we may say, have been heard by God. But the thing is, if we want anything if we want anything, that demand will bring the result by the law of demand and supply, thus leaving all the physical effects of such longings of the human heart in the domain of natural laws, such as the law of causation, the law of action and reaction. The Vedanta philosophy tells us that this is a phenomenal world governed by phenomenal laws, and then goes on to describe what true prayer is and how God listens to our true prayer. So he's speaking from a rather advoitic position, and he's going to explain how even people who believe in prayer, and many of us do pray, and many of the direct disciples recommended prayer to a personal God. But if you want to look at it from the Advaitic perspective, you can look at it as conforming to natural laws, because it's a process where your mental will is helping to shape the cosmic will, you could say. According to Vedanta, begging for material objects, either in the shape of prosperity or in the form of success or name and fame, is not a true kind of prayer. A child of the omnipotent spirit begs for toys of the world. What a degeneration of the mortal man. God does not hear such prayers. They are fulfilled through natural laws. The desire for freedom from punishment is not true prayer, because that freedom will not come before we have reaped the results of our acts. Suffering is nothing but the results of the reaction of our own action. Now, I think we mentioned last week that Holy Mother said that you can actually mitigate some of the suffering that might be due to you due to karmic effects, that your spiritual practice does actually soften the blow of karma. If we have committed certain deeds, God cannot give us freedom from that punishment. So I think Holy Mother would probably disagree with him on that. Thanksgiving is not true prayer. God does not care for thanks, the expression of the feeling of buoyancy for the enjoyment of sense pleasures, or giving thanks to the Maker is not true prayer according to Vedanta. But again, as we said last week, it's a way of remembering God. So from that standpoint, it has its own benefit, because a lot of religious practices, the bottom line is ways to help us remember God. So prayers that anytime we pray for anything, really, or for any reason, we are remembering God, and so it has that amount of benefit to it as a way of remembering God. We have come to this world by the natural law to fulfill our desires and to reap the results of all the works done in our previous incarnations. We are responsible for all the sufferings and pleasures of this life. So whether we thank God or not, we shall have to reap the results, and it does not make any difference to God. Actually, I would kind of disagree with that. I think it's very nice to thank the universe for the things that we have and to appreciate what you have. I think that's actually a very nice way to do it. But he's trying to go from a very Advaitic and scientific angle here. So we'll let him have his day, and we can have our own opinions. True prayer is the mental and verbal expression of the highest spiritual ideal. It consists not in trying to get anything from outside, but in unfolding the higher powers that are slumbering within the soul. It is the expression of that determination of the individual soul for reaching the highest goal of life. It is the constant desire or constant aim or constant thought of attaining to the highest spiritual realization. When we rise above all ordinary desires and do not seek the fulfillment of such desires, then we are ready for true prayer. True prayer is the prayer of the individual soul or the soul of the apparent man to the spiritual or divine self or God who dwells within us. It comes to the soul which is awakened to the transitory and ephemeral character of the phenomenal universe, and which longs for freedom from selfishness and all worldly imperfections that give us trouble and make us unhappy in this life. So again, he's talking from a very high perspective here, and he's going for the absolute pinnacle of prayer, the prayer that is the most important type of prayer. True prayer is said to be heard by the Supreme Being when we remember our spiritual nature. Think of it and try to realize it in this life by unfolding the higher nature which is dwelling in you. When an earnest soul longs for spiritual illumination and prays for the manifestation of higher power that are latent, then the divine spirit, which is the soul of our souls, is said to hear that prayer from within and not from without. And then it manifests its nature. A true prayer is the expression of that attitude of the human mind which arouses the divine nature in man and makes it govern the lower selfish or animal nature by which we are directed in our ordinary life to perform selfish acts. According to Vedanta, lip prayer is really no prayer at all. True prayer is always mental. It is the earnest longing of the heart. It rises in that undisturbed mind which seeks higher enlightenment, knowledge, freedom, and perfection. And that really is the best kind of prayer. But I think many of the spiritual teachers would also say that, not everybody is ready for the highest spiritual teaching. Some of us are still in kindergarten or grade school, and we have to work our way up. And so some of these other types of prayers still have their place in a spiritual path. But as he says, trying to connect with your true divine self really is the highest prayer, and you really are praying to yourself. You're praying to the inner spirit. You're praying to the Atman. You're praying that you will realize that the Atman is one with Brahman. True prayer is the expression of the determined efforts of the human mind to conquer, subdue, and control the lower nature. It is the soliloquy of the awakened soul. When the soul is awakened, it looks at the face of life from a different standpoint, compares them with the highest ideal, and wants to be in tune with that perfect ideal. We must live in freedom and have perfect control of body and mind. And in trying to attain to that state, if we find that there are overwhelming attractions of the lower self which drag us down to the plane of animal nature, we make a strong determination to overcome those obstacles by knocking at the door of the spirit, which is the storehouse of all power and strength. That knocking is, according to Vedanta, the true prayer of the soul. Whether we make any verbal expression of our determination for the realization of truth or not, when that knocking comes, then the soul is ready to enter into the domain of spiritual truth. And at that time, the door opens, and the individual soul is allowed to enter into the abode of infinite peace. It gains divine communion with the Supreme Spirit dwelling within us. Then unbounded spiritual strength comes to the soul, and it overcomes all the obstacles and obstructions that prevent it from realizing the ideal or from making its own nature harmonize with the divine. Then it is said that the true prayer is heard and answered by the Supreme Being. So he's really wants his listeners to go for the highest form of prayer. He's not going to settle for any compromises here. God does not hear the expression of our desires, but when we long for that emancipation, which is the highest ideal of life, and try to attain it with strong determination, then that true prayer of ours is fulfilled. Now, of course, I think perhaps when people do have strong desires and even worldly desires, and they pray for them or concentrate on them, they can manifest those desires. But it may not be actually to their best interest. A lot of times the things we think we want actually don't give us the kind of fulfillment that we're looking for. And so you have to be careful what you pray for. A lot of people that win the lottery find after 6 months they're no happier than they were before, and sometimes even less happy than they were before. So you might pray to win the lottery, and you might actually win the lottery. Maybe you've got a way of controlling the outcome of those little balls falling into the slots. But then you find after you've won a lot of money that things really aren't that much happier than they were before. So a lot of times people pray for things, and they might get them, but they find that they really didn't fulfill them the way they thought they would. And so sometimes you need to be thankful that your prayers weren't answered. Maybe God knows better what you need. So it's probably always best to kind of have that proviso in your prayers. You might say, well, I think I need this, and it might feel nice if I had that. But Lord, you know best. Give me what you think I really need. True prayer is the first expression of that intense longing for freedom from all limitations. It must always be attended with absolute faith and conviction, and with the concentration upon the meaning of what one utters. Mind must not think of anything else at that time. True prayer is but the contemplation of the divine nature by mentally repeating the ideal in words. Whenever we think of anything, we think in words, and when we mentally repeat the name of the ideal, concentrating our mind on it, that prayer is the true prayer. It is another form of meditation, and when such a meditation or true prayer leads to the realization of the divine spirit, then it is said that the prayer is heard. There are a couple of famous stories, which many of you have probably heard many times, but one of them is this couple got a boon of 3 wishes to be granted. And they were not very attractive people, and the least attractive feature of their faces was their noses. They really were kind of ugly, crooked noses. And so they wished that their faces could have beautiful noses on them. And instantly their prayer was answered, and their whole face was covered with beautiful noses. Too many noses. And so they had to use their second wish to remove all these noses. And then they had no noses at all. And so they thought, we're not doing very well with this. Let's pray that our original noses be put back. And so their original noses were put back. And another case where a man got one of those magic lanterns with a genie, and he rubbed the lantern, and the genie came out, and so he said, well, you got, I'll grant your wishes here, so what is it you want? But you have to keep me busy or I'll eat you up. And so he says, well, make me a beautiful house. And it's instantly done. And so he tries to think of something else. Well, find a beautiful wife for me. And so that's done. And so, get me this and get me that. And he's running out of things he wants. And the genie is beginning to chase after him. And so he has to go back to his guru and says, what am I going to do? I've got this genie and he's on my tail and I can't think of anything for him to do. So he cuts off the tail of one of those dogs that's kind of rampant in India that has a curly tail. And he says, here, give him this tail and ask him to straighten it. And so he says, okay, straighten this dog's curly tail. And he straightens it and it pops right back. Curled again, and he straightens it again. So the poor genie is now in a fix. And he says, okay, well, I'll let you off the hook if you let me off the hook. And so, again, it ends up in back to where they were. So this is the kinds of stories that tell us that sometimes being able to fulfill desires is not all that great. And, of course, the dog's curly tail is the metaphor for the nature of the world. We straighten one thing out and some problem pops up somewhere else. True prayer is like the ladder by which the individual soul ascends to the domain of the transcendental reality. And when that state is reached, the soul becomes free and it no longer prays to any being, whether supernatural or natural, because all its prayers are now fulfilled. It gains eternal peace, happiness, knowledge, and bliss. Thus, a man who has realized divinity in himself and has purged out all ideas of separateness has obtained the efficacy of true prayer. Such a person never begs for anything. True prayer brings to the soul enlightenment and wisdom, dwelling latent in every individual. It is the means by which the latent force is aroused. Thus, having attained the subjective value of true prayer, the individual soul begins to feel the relationship which it bears to the Supreme Being. It learns to surrender its will to the cosmic will that moves the phenomenon of the universe and governs all the physical and material forces, and ultimately becomes the playground of the Almighty will. Then he feels that his mind and intellect are but instruments in the hands of the Almighty Being. But so long as the individual soul, covered by the veil of ignorance and enchantment by selfish passions, does not manifest divinity in every action, it should struggle for the attainment of perfection and should remember its highest ideal through meditation and true prayer. And the best form of such a prayer, said by the ancient Vedic sages, is, O soul of our souls, O light of the universe, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Reveal unto us through and through. That's not spelled right. It says thorough and thorough, but anyway, through and through. O destroyer of all evil, protect us with thy compassionate face. Remove all obstacles that prevent the manifestation of the divine power, and do not let us forget that our true nature is one with thee forever and ever. So I knew we would have a little extra time, so I looked at what the other direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna said about prayer in the book that was put together by Edith Tipple, what the disciples said about it. And there was a lot on prayer. I should have counted the number of pages. There's a lot of pages here. So it's one of the larger entries, you could say. They had probably more to say about prayer than almost anything else. So we don't have time to read them all, of course, but I'll just make some selections here. So Swami Brahmananda is first here, and he says, of himself a person can accomplish nothing. There is only one thing to be done. Pray to God and pray unceasingly. Thus, we may forget the ego altogether and continually remember that God alone is real, that God alone is the truth. Pray to him, reveal your grace to me, give me faith and devotion. Pray earnestly, make your minds and lips one. So you see, he's suggesting prayer for the highest realization, praying for the grace of God. Only those who love God like shopkeepers look for profit will give up if their prayers are not answered immediately. God's grace is supreme. Without it, nothing is achieved. Pray to him unceasingly for his grace. Prayer is efficacious. He lovingly hears your prayers. Pray to him unceasingly. Lord, I do not know what is good or what is bad. I am yours. Do with me as you please. Pray unceasingly. Let him be your only refuge. So you see, Swami Brahmananda is speaking to devotees and young brahmacharis that are expected to have some degree of a devotional path towards a personal God. And so he's recommending prayers in that light. And Swami Shivananda similarly. Swami Shivananda's reminiscences come quite often from some of his householder disciples as well as his monastic disciples. And he says, pray to the Lord for strength, knowledge, and dispassionateness. Pray to him with your heart for his grace and for devotion and faith. It is not possible for everyone to practice hard austerities, but then through prayer, everything is attained. If you find it difficult to meditate, be prayerful. And so this is very practical advice for many of us. It's very difficult for us to always have our minds on the highest ideal and to not have any dualistic thoughts. It's very natural for us to want to picture God in a more personified, dualistic way. And he continues, never forget to repeat the Lord's name and pray to him constantly. Pray to God thus, O Lord, give me faith and devotion, knowledge and discrimination. See that I do not get entangled in the snares of thy world bewitching Maya. So you can see again, these direct disciples are suggesting prayers not for the relief from suffering or the relief from poverty or something of that nature, but for grace, for devotion, for knowledge, and for not getting into the entanglements of the snares of Maya. Towards the end of the day, whenever you get the opportunity, call upon him with great ardor, praying, O Lord, let me not forget thee in the whirlpool of this world. It is he who has kept this world enchanted by his Maya. That is why one should also pray, O Lord, do not keep me ignorant with your world-bewitching Maya. Give me pure devotion to your lotus feet. May my life be glorified. It is true that if a person prays sincerely to him, he listens to that prayer and lifts the veil. He will listen to your prayer all the more because you are in the world. So he's talking to householders here. He is especially gracious to you householders because he knows that you carry a heavy load on your shoulders. You are being scorched by the sorrows and bereavements of this world. That is why if you pray a little, he will be pleased and come to your rescue, quickly removing the load from your shoulders. But that prayer should be sincere and earnest. Pray very sincerely, O Lord, make me thy own. I am lacking in understanding. I do not know how to love thee. Graciously draw me to thee and teach me to love thee. So you see, this is all praying for spiritual progress, praying for the qualities that allow us to make spiritual progress. But it's couched in a dualistic way. We're praying to a personal God, and the other direct disciples here are emphasizing that personal God is actually going to hear you. But from what Swami Atmavidyananda was pointing out, that ultimately, in the Advaitic sense, that personal God is none other than your true self. But we've personified that personal God in a form which we can relate to. And those personal gods actually then do exist in that realm. It's not just a fiction, but it's also a reality. So both of those realities are true. Okay, the next one is pretty similar, so we'll go on. This is still Shivananda. Weep, only weep, weep piteously like a simple boy with all earnestness and prayer. Master, do grant me faith and devotion. Protect me, Mother, and free me from this bondage of Maya that thou hast spread around me. To tell you the truth, my son, I know this much alone. Weep in the name of Mother, my son. Weep, lie down at her feet. Take refuge in her and weep. She will certainly take pity. Pray to him, so you can pray, think of God as Mother, you can think of God as the Lord, you can think of God as your best friend, you can think of him as Father. Pray to him with all your heart. Master, I am a boy, I know nothing. Be kind to me. Fill my heart with faith and devotion, and reveal to me your own reality. That will bring you full success. One devotee shared with me that he read in the gospel that if you weep for the Lord for 3 days, that you will surely find him. So he tried it. After 3 days, he still hadn't achieved it, so he said, I think I'll try another 3 days. And after 3 days, he said, my life was changed forever. So you see, my child, God alone can give you these. God alone can give you these experiences. Hold on to him, cry and pray to him. Whatever is necessary, he will do at the proper time, and that's very important. We don't know really what God has in store for us. We have to be ready to accept his will and accept the grace when it comes. Our job is to be ready for the grace, and be ready for the grace whether it comes today, tomorrow, in a year, or at the end of our lifetime. We don't know. We don't know how the play is supposed to work out. We don't know exactly how we're supposed to be working in this world, so you have to pray that you are always doing the Lord's will, that you are an instrument for the Lord. So pray that the Lord is guiding your life, and that you are an instrument of the Lord, and that you can be open to receive his grace when he is ready or she is ready to grant it. Gradually, by the repetition of his name and earnest prayers to him, the mind will become absorbed in him. So part of the goal of prayer isn't that the prayer is going to be answered as much as it is that the prayers are preparing the mind and helping you to become absorbed in the Lord. And in that sense, any kind of prayer, whether it's a prayer of thanksgiving or a prayer for the relief from some suffering, or a prayer for better health, or a prayer for better sustenance in the world, all of those prayers, whereas they are much lower forms of prayer than praying for the qualities which will lead us to realization, they are still prayers that prepare us in some way, because they're keeping our mind on the Lord and helping us to remember that the Lord gives us everything. The divine spirit in the universe is the source of all. Pray to God to make your mind calm and to enable you to attain him. So that's the end of the Shivananda section. Now we're into the Premananda section. Let this prayer constantly rise in you, that self-conceit and egoism may not creep into your soul. God is the inner ruler. He sees and knows everything. Pray and tell him all your wants with guilelessness and a sincere mind. He is more yours than yourself. And of course, Atmavidyananda was pointing out, it is your true self that you're praying to, but we're thinking of it in a more personified way. He will certainly listen to your prayers. And here's another suggestion of his for prayer. Whatever I may be, Lord, thou hast to accept me as I am. For whom else do I have? Lord, I am thine and thou art mine. Know that we are eternally related to him. Pray always that you may have strength, vigor, and the energy in your heart. Without energy, nothing can be achieved. And so you see, even prayers for better health and sustenance can really be seen as ways of preparing you for your spiritual life. It's very difficult if you're constantly worried, especially for householders, if you're constantly worried how you're going to support your family, or if you're not going to have the health to continue your job and those kinds of things. How can you turn your life into more serious spiritual matters? So these things have their place as well in order to give you the proper environment to pursue your spiritual practice. Be pure and sincere. Pray from your heart, Lord, have mercy upon me. Have mercy upon me. The supremely merciful Lord will give you strength, faith, and confidence. Call from the bottom of your heart, and he will certainly hear and respond. So that's still Swami Premananda speaking here. Here's a long prayer by Swami Premananda. May my flesh and my blood be purified. May my skin and bones be purified. May my marrow of my bones be purified. May my body be purified. May I be free from attachments. May I be free from impurities. May my organs of sense be purified. May my organs of action be purified. May all my actions be purified. May I be free from attachments. May I be free from impurities. May my mind be purified. May my vital energy be purified. May the earth and the air be purified. May the fire, ether, and water be purified. May I be free from all attachments. May I be free from impurities. May I be pure. I am verily the Atman. I am pure. I am free. I am blissful. Swami Turiyananda has some advice. Do not say to him, give me this. Do not give me that. It will be a selfish prayer. When you want to do one thing and do not want to do another thing, you allow your ego to come in. Some there are who are afraid to work and try to avoid it. That makes their bondage and selfishness lasting. Pray to him for bhakti, but be ever ready to obey his commands. Pray, may I keep thee in mind under all conditions. May I never fall into any other company than that of thy devotees. And we talked about last week the importance of holy company and being around like-minded spiritual people, and how if you end up in the company of people that have extreme views or constantly talking about worldly matters, political matters, sexual matters, all sorts of worldly things, that your mind gets dragged into that. And the more extreme the views are in the circles, the more extreme your views become, and that becomes very dangerous. So you definitely want to be in spiritual company. Tell the Lord, thou art the inner controller. Look within me, see if there is anything. Even to pray to him thus is something. Pray crying to him, O Lord, may I love thee with all my heart. And another Swami Atmavidyananda, it does not matter that you have to live in the world if you but keep remembrance of the Lord. Desires cannot lead you astray. Constantly pray to him. Tell him your wishes. He will set everything right. The only refuge is the Lord, to have constant devotion to him and to have a taste for repeating God's name. These are the only real prayers. Swami Atmavidyananda. It is extremely bad if our devotion increases when he is kind, and it takes to flight when he is cruel or does not heed our prayers. Of course, the world dishes out harsh lessons, but Swami Vivekananda pointed out he learned more from his hard times than he did from his good times. So we have to feel blessed sometimes to have difficulties that we have to overcome, because that's how we gain strength and greater understanding and learn the lessons we have to learn and burn off bad karmas, and all sorts of good things happen. There is no other path but to call on him, as though one's life is in imminent danger. Always pray, Lord, please reveal yourself. Please show yourself to me. I want nothing else, not even heavenly joys. I want you only. And along with this, one has to pray, Lord, remove from me all hankerings for enjoyments. Spiritual progress is a far cry in the midst of selfishness and narrow-mindedness. So when difficulties come, you have to pray to have the understanding of why the difficulties have come. What are the lessons I'm supposed to learn? How is this going to make me stronger? And please make me stronger in the face of these difficulties. Make me strong enough to face these difficulties. So, and then when good things come, I think it is appropriate to be thankful for the good things and to remember that this is, in some sense, the grace of God coming in, and to be open to the grace of God and to recognize the grace of God when it comes. So, that completes our, well, it never completes. There's all sorts more information here, but it completes our time. So we will conclude for tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see, filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is, from Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace. And if you didn't catch Swami Sarvapriyananda's lecture on that peace chant, please look it up on our website, because it was a remarkable lecture. All right, blessings.